said that there's a movement in the legislature across the street from where we're at right now in downtown Lansing to make it a 2-point penalty if you should refuse a breathalyzer when you get pulled over. Is that what's brewing across the street?
Not just a breathalyzer, but what's called a preliminary roadside analysis.
Oh.
Specifically defined, and I'm looking at the bill right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's House Bill 5385, specifically described as taking essentially the field sobriety tests and the PBT and anything that the officer wants to ask you to do to determine the presence of alcohol or a controlled substance as defined in Michigan law, which can include so many things from Tylenol to Ambien to cough medicine to, I would argue, an aggressive officer could claim you're too impaired by coffee to be driving and ask you to take these tests.
Or they can ask you to say the Chinese alphabet backwards 3 times, or close your eyes and touch your nose, or walk the line, with your hands extended out, that kind of thing. Those tests you're talking about.
Yeah, I just marked 15 years practicing law, and the last 7 has been exclusively doing drugged and drunk driving defense, and I have seen the gamut from, throwing coins on the ground and saying pick up a quarter, pick up a nickel, pick up a dime, to touch your finger to your nose, to the infamous horizontal gaze nystagmus test, which is often not done according to the taxpayer-funded training that we give.
What did you
our
call
officers.
that? What is that called?
The horizontal gaze nystagmus test. This is the test where you see it on those PSAs, Michael. The officer runs a finger or a pen horizontally across the plane of your face, trying to look for the involuntary jerking of your eyeballs.
Oh. Are you supposed to follow the finger or not? With your eyes. Are you supposed to follow the finger?
You're supposed to follow the finger with your eyes. And a lot of people have a hard time doing just that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think that's the definition of failing or passing the test, is whether you can follow the finger. But it is not. It is the officer's subjective determination of the onset and degree of that involuntary movement of your eyeballs as it supposedly tracks.
So I'm not telling people to drink and drive, and I'm not telling them how to get out of getting pulled over for drinking and driving. But if you are asked to take the sobriety test or the breathalyzer test, should you do it?
You're not required to, and frankly, I don't know why you would, because a lot of those tests, according to the government's own research, sober people can fail those tests. And again, it's up to the officer to score them, right? So it's kind of the officer's subjective determination. And what frustrates me is so many times, number one, it's not on video, and number two, the officer doesn't follow the officer's own standardized training that we all paid for, and, the judge does nothing about it.
Isn't it true they cut your license in half, though, if you don't agree to take the test?
That is not true. And that's sort of the essence of this bill. This bill started as that roadside saliva test.
Mm-hmm.
This is how that whole thing started, and it's now morphed, as I said on Facebook, into this: you're compelled to do the roadside analysis, which include the PBT for alcohol and the SFSTs. And I suspect that what's coming down the road, maybe next year, 2 years, whenever, that roadside saliva gizmo, and the penalty is 2 points on your driver license.
So let's say that you get pulled over, you refuse to take the test, you refuse to take the breathalyzer. What happens to you next, typically?
The officer can make the decision to arrest you, and it is very, very, very subjective. Often I've seen an officer make an arrest just based on the smell and the fact that the person's driving at maybe 1 o'clock in the morning with glassy, bloodshot, watery eyes. And
then they take you downtown, as they say on the cop shows or whatever, to the station, and then they force you to take the breathalyzer there?
There, if you don't take the breathalyzer, it's 6 points on your license and a 1-year suspension from the Michigan Secretary of State. And that's another little concern I have with this bill, is it's not clear whether the 2 points, let's say you refuse the PBT, and then the 6 points where you refuse the what we call evidential breath test downtown, as you put it,
Yeah.
whether those points are aggregated, added up, so you get 8 points instead of 6, which would be 6 points coming out of the same sort of what we call transaction of events. It's not real clear in this bill.
Well, let's keep in touch then, if you don't mind, Mr. Nichols, and as it becomes more clear, let's see where we go and where it goes from here.